name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Welcome to our staff devotion this Monday morning, coming to you care of the coronavirus. So I'm meeting in Bermagui, and you are at your computer screen. We will certainly be praying for you during this time of adjustment as we get used to the new normal. My encouragement to you is to be kind to yourself and to expect a time where you're going to feel not as competent with the new normal as what you have been up until this point. There will be new competencies that will take time to learn, just like a new language. And so we need to have extra grace with each other. In the lead up to Eastertide, I would like to draw your attention to some of the things that happen during that time. One of the celebrations that we have is the remembrance of the Last Supper and the triumphal entry into Jerusalem. As Christians, we live under the burden of a sad and violent history of anti-Semitism. And in the sobering shadow of Holocaust, it's critical for us to be clear about what our sacred texts say when they make reference to the Jews, especially during Holy Week when we contemplate the death of Jesus. When the resurrection narratives speak of the Jews, the chief priests and the leaders of the people, they're referring to officials who collaborate closely with the Roman systems of oppression and were viewed with contempt by much of Jewish society in their time. They were certainly not identified with the Jewish community as a whole, and certainly not with Jews in the present moment. This year we've been looking at the Gospel account of Matthew, who's a very, very Jewish book. So I'm going to read a little account from there. The disciples went and did as Jesus had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them, and Jesus sat on it. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds went ahead of him, and those that followed shouted, "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, "Who is this?" The crowds answered, said, "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee." Jerusalem's in turmoil. It's Bedlam. Passover is the high point of the Jewish year. Easter for Christians celebrates the agony of Christ crucified and the celebration of new life. For Jewish believers, Passover was about liberation, remembering how the angel of death passed over the houses of the faithful, bringing divine justice on the Egyptians. How many Jews crossed the Red Sea? It's always the question. Well, all of them. You can equate it with Islam's Hajj to Mecca. Passover must have been an enormous event. The Roman governor usually lives at Caesarea on the coast. Wouldn't you like to live by the sea? But for now, he moves to Jerusalem, and he brings with him his crack troops to meet the rising tide of Jewish nationalism. Town is full to capacity. It's like the year Kylie Minogue wanted to spend Christmas in Bateman's Bay, and there wasn't a spare room anywhere. It's like being in Geelong on the night that they won the grand final. Into this cauldron of nationalism comes Jesus. He complicates matters. He's upset the apple cart, and it reminds me of the beginning of Matthew's Gospel, where Herod was troubled and all Jerusalem with him. The irony of this is that Jesus, the Prince of Peace, it's he who troubles the sleep of the authorities. It's the King of Kings who commands his disciples to fetch a donkey. Matthew and Mark both begin their story here with the provision of the animals. It's a bit unusual. The disciples are caught off guard. Is it another demonstration of his a sort of a form of divine understanding that they weren't privy to, or perhaps he's showing his disciples that he's been arranging things they don't know of. We're just simply not told. Instead, we see a sort of slightly comical pageantry going on, a parody of a conquering king. Instead of the proud war horse, the Messiah is riding humble on a donkey. And the people spread their cloaks, their most precious possessions. The crowds chant the words of Psalm 118, which we repeat in the liturgy. Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. And it's echoed over and over again. Imagine this. It's a small city. In the one gate comes the Roman governor riding his beast of war with his retinue of skilled soldiers. You can be sure there would be a crowd to meet him. There would be hell to pay if there wasn't. And now there's this rival procession with "Save us now" on the lips of the people, because that's what Hosanna means. Save us now. A rival king. It's tantamount to treason. What's the penalty for treason? Death and torture on a cross. Humiliation, shame and suffering, hung naked in front of your neighbors, your family, your friends. Well, Jesus is not just the Jewish king, but his kingdom extends beyond the borders of national identity, even over creation itself. Our gospel writers bear witness to his extraordinary life and remarkable resurrection from the dead. May Jesus bless you this Easter.